Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the beat. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Rockingham, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike and Marty. Today we're here with Leslie Goldman. This is Leslie's first time in studio on the feed. She's a Zoom veteran, but she's being amused by how disorganized we really are. The casual nature of our organization.
I wouldn't
Anyway.
use the word disorganized at all.
Anyway, here we are. It's June 29th, coming up on July 4th weekend, which is just always amazing to me. We go from March to July 4th so quickly. It's just,
And then wait for July 4th, because next thing you know, it's
yeah.
Labor
I
Day.
know. So local events, Marty.
Local events. So at the Opera House this week is the movie that Mike has been waiting for the most for this year. It's Minions, The Rise of Gru. That's going to run July 1st through the 12th. I have a feeling that's going to be a pretty popular movie. The classic movie tonight is Fast and Furious. I think it's the original Fast and
Yeah,
Furious,
yeah.
and that's sponsored by Tom Call Excavation. So that's a good one. I've never seen any of the Fast and Furiouses on the
You
big
kidding
screen.
me?
No,
Like,
no, I've
you-
seen them, but not on the big screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, seen them, just not
All
on.
right.
And so it's always
Good
fun to
say.
see them. There's a whole different experience when you see them on TV versus you see them on the big screen
Yeah.
with the surround sound and stuff.
Exactly.
So
It's amazing.
it is.
The other thing that's coming up, Friday Farmers Market. Don't
Right.
forget. I've been to all three the two so far, I guess. Three, and the two in the block party, and they're great. They're having music every week, food every week, new vendors, lots of fresh produce. The food I really like. You can get dumplings now, fresh dumplings that
Oh,
are
nice.
really quite good. This week they're going to have Izzy Holloway is going to be playing the music. I don't know if you
nice.
know Izzy, but
Rick
they're
Holloway's
sort
son.
of They've just played down at Brat Rocks, and they got really good reviews on the Vermont Journal. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Nice.
So check them out. Saxon's River this Monday is the Saxon's River 4th of July. I don't know if people have been, but it is a big event.
It's a
I'm
huge
sure
event.
You go every year, but it is like one of the seven or eight wonders of the world. Is right there in Saxon's River. The parade starts at 9:45. We have a little thing. This year's theme is the Roaring Twenties, so people are going to be doing the Charleston and dancing out front. There's a pie contest, which I'm hoping to both enjoy the pies and enter maybe. We'll see.
And it
Like I said,
starts-
that's up for debate.
Yeah, and it starts with a road race, just to
and
remind
there's
people
a
of the road
5K
race,
road race.
that we think starts at 8:00. I haven't actually seen a lot of advertising about it. I mean, I know it happens
you see
every
it out
year,
on
but
Facebook, and there is a thing in the Vermont Journal, but it doesn't have I didn't see a listing of when the race starts. It talks about when the parade starts,
I think
and then
8
what else is
o'clock.
happening, and
And then, of course, it culminates with fireworks, right?
I'm
Did
not
you do
sure if
fireworks?
they
No
do.
fireworks
No
this
fireworks?
year.
Oh, okay.
That's what I heard,
okay.
because it
Really
says,
expensive.
Stay on the,
Yeah, very
yeah.
expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
get out there. It's the first time they've really done it in 2 years now.
And it's
so,
always fun. They always do a great, the parade is great. I like the parade.
Yes, and Main Street Arts is doing the Phoenix again. It's
Oh,
going to
nice.
be in the parade, so you might want to check that out. But yeah, that's it for local events. It's that time of year where there's so much stuff going on that.
I know it's
You
hard
just
to,
can't.
it's hard to keep up with
Yeah.
everything. And then
All right.
people are on
Oh, that
vacation.
reminds me. This, the other thing that hasn't happened in 2 years, but's happening this weekend, is the Westminster Historical Society is opening their museum, and they're going to open the Czar Bradley office. I don't know if people know what that is, but Czar Bradley was a lawyer who was actually, I can't remember, he did parts of the Bill of Rights. I mean, he was really instrumental in doing lots of work on, and I think it was the amendment that created the Electoral College. He was the one that he was a major player in that whole thing. But his his original law office is in Westminster.
Wow.
And
knew?
it's basically when he closed his law practice, he just gave it over to the state. And so, and they didn't do anything with it for a long time. And then the family took it back over. But it is the exact same building with the exact same stuff that was in it in like the 1830s.
Wow.
Which
And
Mike finds hugely fascinating.
I do. I'm
And
a
you
history
actually
geek.
had pictures. We did.
Yeah, we did
a
a
show about it.
We
a
did
while,
a feed
long
on it.
time
I
ago.
think
Yeah.
a while back.
Bob Haas came on, right?
And Bob Haas came
Yeah.
on, and because it was one of his things, and he talked about it. But that's this weekend, and they're actually doing a fundraiser for Bob Haas for a project he was working on. He had a collection of I would say primitive firearms, but like flintlocks and things from the 1700s, and they have those at the Westminster Museum, and they're putting together a display. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Nice.
use that. But check that out this Saturday. That's another thing that it's a little known but interesting thing that you might want to see, especially if you've never been. It's a piece of history. The other thing that he was responsible for is switching the flag. They used to have a stripe for every state, and so they stopped when they got to 15 or 16 because you can imagine what it would be like now, so they went back to 13. But that flag, the 15-star flag, flew over Fort, what was it? The Star-Spangled Banner was.
Sumter?
You
Fort
got
Sumter?
me.
Was it
You
Fort
re-
Sumter?
No, Fort McHenry, wasn't it?
McHenry?
Yeah.
Yeah, something where they
Composed the Star-Spangled Banner.
Fort McHenry.
There's a replica of that flag down
Knew
there.
I should have listened better in history class.
Totally. All of us. Well, not him. He's on it.
He's
All
on
right.
it. We digress, however.
I digress. Anyway, but check all that stuff out. It's real interesting.
That's what's interesting about history is to see how the Electoral College is now functioning now, where it started and where it is now. I think that's fascinating.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree.
But Leslie,
Hi.
hi.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. It's great. Very impressive, actually, to see the technology and the effectiveness of your work. Yeah. From my
The bar
point
is down here.
wouldn't know. It's good for me.
So you wrapped up in what, May?
Mid-May. Yep. The session ended mid-May with the passing of our budget, the state budget, which is the very last thing that is done and that gets sent on to the governor. We ended up with about an $8.3 billion budget, which includes ARPA funds, of course.
Yeah.
Our usual budget is in the $7 billion, so there's an extra billion, and there's some in reserve for upcoming years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
amazing amount of money, and I think a lot of it was well spent, I hope.
And you got to be, so just to kind of backtrack a little bit, did you start out the session Zoom and then went in person, or was the whole session in person this year?
Well, for the first year, the entire first year of the 2 years was on Zoom. The second year, we did the first 2 weeks on Zoom and then moved into a hybrid. So those people that felt comfortable started coming into committee, but the session in the chamber was in person or in Zoom. I don't even remember. It's like a blur.
Because I did find a picture. I found a picture on your website that you were actually in the State House, and I was going to ask you how that felt after, because you started. You didn't
started
have
with
that. You
Zoom.
didn't
You
have
didn't have
that.
any-
Yeah, you didn't have that experience.
It
How was that?
actually strange for me because, once again, I had never been in the State House, and people were avoiding each other. So it wasn't necessarily community because we didn't want to breathe on each other.
Yeah,
So there was a
yeah.
little bit of sort of what I would call scurrying around to try and avoid. We'd go to the cafeteria, get food, go back to our committees rooms, where we felt people were spread out. The Sergeant at Arms. Her first name is Janet, I'm blocking on her last name, was fantastic in organizing the State House, and it was like, sit here, don't sit here, sit here, very clear
Yeah,
on
yeah,
where
yeah.
our 6 feet would be. We did have some cases, but very few, astoundingly few, because people were respectful of the rules.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to be in person for me. Because everyone talks about how important relationships are when we do this work. And of course, I didn't know it from the first year. The second year, I began to get a little bit of a view of
Yeah.
that. When I cared about a bill, I understood why it was how to talk to people. and that's what I was learning.
I imagine like the classic water cooler chats are
Exactly.
where a lot of the work happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
So $8 billion, when you're working with a budget that big, do those numbers just become like, ugh?
Well,
Or does it, because you get into minutia,
yeah, so they're money committees and they're policy committees. And I was on a policy committee, healthcare. So we don't really get into the money at all. So I didn't have that except for the bills that I care about. So for example, there was one bill, S-285, which has to do with healthcare transformation, and there was a budget request of $5 million. That's really the only money I was dealing. There was other money with other bills, but this was the one I cared about. So, was sort of advocating for that policy with the money committees. In this case, it was appropriations. So I would talk to them. So what appropriations does is they take all the requests from all the 11 committees and put it together into a budget. And they decide what they think has value and what has less value, because it has to be weighted, because you can't do everything. And it ends up that the appropriations committee is the committee. That's where the power kind of the purse is, and also what's demonstrated about what we care about. Philosophically, where do you put your money? Do you put it in healthcare? Do you put it in housing? Do you put it in corrections? There's just so many different places that have requests.
Right,
So
right.
ultimately, that committee allocates money to what we care about from the policy point of view.
And would you say, well, that's just such an interesting perspective, because you can state things in policy, but unless it's backed up by the appropriations committee, it's not really what we care about.
Right, whenever there's funding with it, if we don't fund it, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Totally, it has to be in the budget.
Wow.
We have an opportunity to revise the budget. This was, of course, new learning for me, called the Budget Adjustment Act, and that happens at the beginning of every year. So they look at the budget, so it starts July 1st, the new budget. So then in January, we look at the budget we passed. What did we miss? What do we need to add? What can be readjusted? So that happens right away with the current budget. And
that's
then
good.
Right after that's done is the next budget.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's
Right.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So, just generally, without going into too much detail, what would you say Vermont cares about? When you look at the budget, and when you've seen where the money has flowed, what comes out to you?
Well, I will just say that something like $99 million was put into workforce development. We put a huge, huge amount into workforce across the whole workforce. It was in trades. It was in nursing, particularly because of our nursing workforce shortage, bad thing. And there are a lot of reasons for that. So that had to be really broken down into detail. Surprisingly, what we learned, and this part of it came out of healthcare, was there aren't enough nursing faculty. Why isn't there enough nursing faculty? Because they don't get paid enough. So that nurses rather work clinically than teach. Because
that
of the
makes
salary
sense, yeah.
disparity is huge. So putting in forgivable loans and salary supports. There's some interesting programs, I think it's at Copley Hospital up north, where they're taking people that already work there and try to upskill them. So you might take a nurse's aide and support them so that they can become an RN. It's
Oh, wow,
fantastic.
that's a great
program.
idea.
Fantastic program. So how to spread that throughout the state. So looking at what's working across the state and that kind of thing, and then funding it.
That's great, because why start, somebody totally novice, right, versus someone that kind of knows a little bit about the system? I would say in the end, it's probably a lot less education.
Yeah, because, they come in with the vocabulary.
Right,
You
right,
don't
right.
need to start from scratch. So it's a really good program. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. The nursing faculty thing was great. It was a lot of support for VTC and then there's this whole simulation lab for nurses. There's a whole lot of different places where we wanted to support that workforce. So that was cool. What else? Climate, a lot of money going into that. Sort of in Vermont, our biggest contribution to global climate change is transportation, which is trying to move from fossil fuel to electric vehicles and getting that done, and then our heating systems.
Yes.
So weatherization is huge. I love weatherization because it doesn't, change a lot except support people who don't have
Right.
sort of tight housing. So it it adds less carbon to the air, it reduces their costs, so programs like that in the climate world.
What about housing?
Yeah, housing is so complicated.
It
So-
is.
oh.
It's like this big catch-22 situation that we have here in the state.
Yeah. I mean, there's some bills, and every committee goes into each bill in this total depth. So my arena is healthcare. So the housing bills there were many, and they were complex, and I don't even know necessarily which ended up out. The governor vetoed some, and how that affected things is a little bit unclear. To me, the goal, of course, is to make more housing available, to support landlords and bringing more housing online, to support upgrading the housing, to support renters, so both, to support renters and renters and landlords,
Well, and that ties back to the workforce problem again, too, because you hear a lot of the workforce issues are around people can't afford housing to live
How- to
here,
come here.
to work here.
Or even find housing.
Or find it.
It's
Yeah.
terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, And, supporting the trades, I think, is huge. And there's a lot of money in here in supporting trades. There is the education, there's a whole bunch of education. One of the things I really care about, it's not huge, but it's looking how we fund our technical centers. Because right now, the system, it's a system problem, which I think is designed not to have kids go into the technical centers. I think the technical center is great. My son actually went through a program there. So I think that needs to be figured out, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
We need to be kind of, I think I was reading the front of your website, and one of the things was resilience.
Yeah.
And I think in order for us to be, as a state, resilient, we have to look at it, getting more trades, because there's a lot of history, and you look around a lot of the small towns, and you drive through, and there are these mom and pop plumbers and electricians and whatever, and they're not necessarily having the family
Follow-on,
The next generation.
to hand it down to.
Yeah.
And we lose all of those trades, and we don't get the houses built, we don't, all that. So it's how do you juggle, you guys have your work cut out for you out
It's
there.
really complex.
I was just thinking about it as you were talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. And, we make little bites and move forward. I hope the technical centers really get robust. I think they need to. I think everyone somehow should come out with a real plan for the future. I hope that happens. The problem now is the money follows the student, so that at the high schools, it's not necessarily to their advantage to have kids go to the technical centers, because then they lose
Then
money
they
at the
lose
home
that
school.
money.
So it's this conflict, and that's why that needs to be really resolved,
okay,
if that makes any sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what you
Yeah, I
were
just wanted to
referring to with
clarify.
the system.
It's a systemic,
Systemic,
a design problem, and that needs to be fixed. I'm hoping it gets fixed. I know there's a study group, and that,
Nice.
people complain about the study groups that come out of the legislature. I think there was some article,
Oh, really?
maybe somewhere or other. But you can't
Vermont
know
digger.
what to do if you don't
If you
understand
don't
the
understand,
problem.
you need the
Yeah.
information.
You need the
yeah.
information. You need to go deep. Yeah, that's a great example of
Yeah.
that.
Are you on any study groups now? or
No, because it's an off-season. The study groups generally happen
During the
during the, in
legislation?
the off session particularly, but not during, this is sort of campaign season now, so
Mhm.
we don't know who's gonna get reelected, or, a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people have
yeah.
retired, which you may have heard of, a lot
Oh, I
of-
didn't happen to hear that. So
Yeah.
that,
But there's a huge shakeup anyway because of Leahy leaving.
That's right.
I mean, it's just like that one pin came out, and now
Everything's
everybody's moving.
Yeah, particularly in the Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Senate's gonna look really different. The House is gonna look very different because of, I think, something like 8 out of 11 chairs have retired.
wow.
That's huge because it's institutional memory, it's knowledge. That means all younger people are going to move up. Now, some of its institutional memory will be lost, but what will be gained would be vibrancy
yeah.
and
Maybe a
new
different way of
ideas.
looking at
yeah,
things.
yeah,
and-
yeah,
yeah,
new
yeah.
opportunity. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of new opportunity coming up.
Locally, there's an issue around what's it
Appro-
called?
yeah.
Reappropriation or
Apportionment.
reapportionment. yes.
Apportionment, right?
Get the word right.
Yeah, it's long.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. As who's representing whom is changing,
Yeah,
right?
right. So just a quick overview. Every 10 years we have a census, and in the Vermont Constitution it says that we have 150 people in the House. So what happens is every 10 years we take the census from Vermont, and it's somewhere around 620,000, divide by 150, and that determines what one representative represents. It turns out that this year is about 4,100 people. So they had to, look around and make sure that that balance is intact. Well, what happened between 2010 and 2020, Rockingham lost 18% of the population.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a
Big number.
Yeah.
So I asked one of our select board members, what happened, and his thought was that a lot of big houses had families, but the families have moved on, so now there's only one person in the house.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
some
makes
of that,
sense.
there's
Yeah.
probably other reasons too, but anyway, that's one of them. So then what had to happen is, it starts with the Secretary of State Reapportionment Board, they do an examination, and then it goes to House committees called Government Operations. And what they did is have to redesign the representation. So what happened was, and what was then adopted by the House and the Senate, and the governor signed it, is Rockingham, which used to be with Athens, Grafton, Brookline, Windham, shifted to the south. So now Rockingham is with Westminster and Brookline. So just 3 towns rather than 5. The other towns went with Chester. So Chester, Athens, Grafton, and Windham. So for Rockingham now, there's still 2 representatives, which I'm happy about, because the original plan, and it went through our Board of Civil Authority, was going to be 1 person, 1 town, 1 representative. So what they did is they took Rockingham, and in order to get the right number, we have something like about 5,900 residents, I guess. So for the 41 that they had to carve out some people. So what they did was carve out Saxon's River.
Jeez.
Right?
Sure,
So all of
Saxon's people love
Rockingham, and then Saxon's River was matched with Westminster. So that didn't seem right for our town. Saxon's
fit,
River is
yeah.
a real, part of Rockingham. So luckily, and I was happy, House Government Operations created the new district of all of Rockingham, all of Westminster, and Brookline with 2 representatives. So right now, we have a primary going on. We're in primary season. I'm running in the primary as a Democrat. Michelle Boslun, who is now currently representing Westminster along with Putney and Dummerston. So that's a little domino.
It's like, I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's like a shell game.
Yeah, exactly. A little dominoes going on here. So Michelle Boslun is also a Democrat, and she is also running to represent Westminster, Rockingham, and Brookline. We do not have at this point a primary challenge, but there is a challenge in the general. So there'll be 2 Democrats in the general, 2 Republicans in the general, and then there could be independents or other people step up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's where we stand at this
Wow.
point. Is that logical? Does that make sense?
It does.
does.
I have to like kind of.
Yeah, we
make
almost
less
should get a
confusing.
graphic and
I know.
get the map.
The map
Yeah.
is actually quite interesting. It is available.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. I'm hoping that you'll come back at some point and talk
Anytime.
about that and,
Yeah.
and introduce us to your other
Happy
representative.
to,
and-
happy
yeah,
to. I
yeah.
think she does really good work. She's
Oh,
very
good,
passionate
good,
and
good.
caring. Yeah, if I could say, I think our work sort of is on 2 levels. Our first part is constituent work and really connecting constituents with trying to solve problems, doing the research, sending them to advocates or state government, and other legislators who are experts. And then our second work is the policy work, which we've talked about. So those are the 2 balances. I think Michelle is really strong in
Okay,
caring for her
nice.
constituents.
And
Yeah.
I can speak, we're down to just about 2 minutes. I can speak to the constituent work, having reached out to you about some things, and then Leslie was very responsive. So just to speak to that, there's power behind, you put your money where your mouth is, I should say, that you're saying that, and then I can say that it's true. that
Yeah.
You're doing that, and that's very helpful.
Thank you. I try. I'm not always as successful as I wish. I wanted to do a lot more to help, support with your work.
you got the ball rolling.
Thank
you got
you.
me starting in the connection. And a lot of
Yeah.
it's just you have to connect to this person and then this person and then this person. That's sometimes just
Yeah,
with government. That's the way it works.
Yeah. Constant conversation. Yeah.
So we have about a minute and a half left. Is there anything any points we didn't get to talk about today that you would like to talk about, or are you doing any of your constituent meetings online?
Haven't decided about that. We'll be going door to door for sure. I sort of enjoy the one-on-one or whatever, having conversations. I hope people will be in touch with me, and just keep talking. I hope people vote. I think it's crucial
That's
that
really
we step
important.
up, particularly in November. I care a lot about the Reproductive Liberty Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
There are two amendments to the Vermont Constitution that we're going to be voting on in November. One is amending, it's called Proposition 2, sort of removing the word slavery from our Constitution, and the second is reproductive liberty, excuse me. And I think it's I think it's crucial,
I think it
given
is
the
too.
times that we're in.
yeah.
And I'm proud of Vermont. I'm proud to be a Vermonter. I'm proud of the state legislature, and I hope people step up to vote for that.
Yeah.
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 Vote is your voice.
That's
right?
the only
Vote,
way.
Vote your
Yeah.
voice, right? That's not the slogan.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, again,
another
it's
show has
gone
flown
by
by.
really
Whoa,
fast.
it's like,
Did well for your first
I
time.
love that. Thank you guys. You're great.
Well, thanks, Leslie. I hope you will come back and we can talk some more this summer about
Yeah.
what's happening and what you see in the future.
Absolutely.
But that's it for today. See you later,
See you
Fellas
next week.
Falls, and bye for the feed.
Bye.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music.